Hey Carly, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to make some time for us. I finally get you on here, and I'm so excited to have you on.
Yes, likewise.
Perfect. So, I a lot of people and stuff that I've been hearing and reading about, especially from my contacts over in the East Coast, you've got a big, cool reputation over there with what you do with, Body by Carly. So I think it's pretty awesome with the stuff you're doing and just the feedback I've gotten and not living on the East Coast is a lot of people are speaking very highly of the work you're doing. How has the end of the year last year, 2025, now beginning 2026, how is it looking for you right now? How has it been?
So within honestly like Q4 of 2024 was a big shift for me. I am a full-time high school teacher, which a lot of people don't even know. So 2025, I was on sabbatical. So I had the year off from my job to really pursue 100% of my energy into my fitness brand, Total Body Carly, which I had so much expansion in 2025. And you're going 100 miles an hour to where it almost like stopped, but not where you're still going because I built it up to where I still had to keep that momentum going with the business, but also handle my full-time job as a veteran high school teacher. So Q4 of 2025 was very, very overwhelming for me. And there were some other shifts and changes. One of the gyms where I was working at, she chose to close down. So we had built such an awesome community there, and I was planning on still working there while I was going back full time and running the business. So transitioning out of that or not having that was definitely a shift and a change. But what I wanted to do with events change, and then even putting an at-home gym in my space at home, that happened as well. So a lot of great things happened in Q4. A lot of changes for sure.
That's awesome. That is awesome just to be able to
Yeah.
have that time and like you said, just good changes that are going on and hey, power to the teachers out there. And so I applaud. I think teachers deserve to get more credit than they do today. So
Yes.
well, so fabulous, fabulous. Now, you're doing these things, you're doing a full-time gig or a full-time job, and now you're doing this, right? And it's something that you're passionate about, obviously, and you've got a lot of good reviews, a lot of people's lives you've impacted, right?
Yeah.
One thing I want our listeners to hear and people, that want to hear is your story, right? Like what can you share with your story? Why and how did you get started in this with what you're doing?
Yeah. 2025. I'm sorry, let's rewind. 2020, we have COVID. Obviously, that was a hard time for everyone. And I was definitely battling serious depression during that time. Once things started slowly opening up, I was like, I just need to move my body. Now, mind you, I grew up playing sports, but I was never a gym person. Like, I just want to clear that up. I was not some gym girl. I was not some like workout guru, nothing. Like, I played team sports growing up, and that was about it. I just decided, like, I need to get my ass to the gym. I started going to group classes. I seeked out a personal trainer. I did that for about a year where it really built up my confidence to where I told myself, you know what, like I could rock this on my own. Like I learned enough. The group classes I kind of graduated from. So then I got a gym membership, started going on my own. When that happened, I had even had this concept or this idea. I was like, it would just be so cool to do a bodybuilding show. Even growing up, I looked at bodybuilders like, and only the men though, which is interesting. Like you would have like a Phil Heath or a Victor Martinez, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's like, how do you get your body like that? And so I ended up doing my first bodybuilding show in 2023, and I went to just the regular local show, and I placed first in wellness, and I did a crossover. So I did two categories, first in wellness and first in figure. So I had all this momentum. My coaches, Grace Rivera and Steve Navarrete, they were such a great support system for me. And I had like this momentum where I'm like, I'm getting my pro card. I don't care what anyone says. I am getting this pro card. When you get the top of the local show, it then segues you to nationals. So I go to nationals. I go to compete in figure because I was more upper body dominant, where it's like lean more towards
Yeah.
that. My mentors told me, and I see these girls, and I'm like, I had like a breakdown. I was like, I look like shrimp toast next to them. What is this? Like, I placed last. So you go from placing first and you realize it's like little no, big fish in a little pond to then being the little fish in a big pond, right? After seeing those women, and respectfully, it's like you could tell they're using a lot of steroids.
Right.
Just very, like, transparent. I was like, "I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna look like that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna train like a bodybuilder, but I don't foresee doing a show to get to that level," just because of kind of like when you see, like, the reality of it and the backstage of it, it's like, I don't know if that's for me.
Right.
Fast forward, that's when I was like, "You know what?" How I was able to really have this transformation, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I now want to help people. With that, I just started teaching one group class at a local gym, which then segued me into teaching at another gym and then getting into the event space and then just really flourishing with my business, segueing into online. And it just, even since I've met Ray, it's been a 180 transformation with the brand and the business.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, I love what you shared because here you are, and we all went through a thing during COVID,
Yeah.
right? We went through all of us some level of depression, we were down, had
Yeah.
into something a lot of people didn't have access because of lockdown and whatnot. But I love how you said like, hey, I wanted to get in here. And it's funny, you joke like, hey, you're sitting next to these bodybuilders and you're looking like the
Yeah.
show, but it's cool because you're looking at it and this, you've seen it for this and like kind of like what you saw people see behind the scenes. There's other people that are not natural. And that's why, for what you're doing, your brand and who you're helping and the people that you've impacted have said these great things, right? With what, hey, this is what Carly's done for me. It's good. It's quality. You're not over there pitching other things that route that you could have went, but you didn't. Right. So good on you on that. And that's a great story there, and, um, you know, you go in 180, right? And here you are now. Now, here's the thing that people always feel, they always see the success, right? No one sees the hard work behind the scenes. Let's talk about something a little that, people don't ever talk about as much, but what were the barriers you faced starting up and growing, right? Because now you've got a good client base, you've got things, you're going from gym to gym or having access to gyms. And, talk about like what were the barriers, or some of the things that were mentally, emotionally, and something that is true in the industry, how did you deal with any misogyny that had to come with it? Because, this is kind of like a boys club, right? That night dynamic, right? So what would folks about that?
Oh God. So that's like a loaded question. And there's so much that I can talk about. I mean, I would say one of the biggest barriers in the beginning was myself.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I've been teaching high school for 18 years, but like going into the fitness space, it was like, do I really like, am I good enough? Do I know what to do? Can I really teach a fitness class? Like, and I was so in my head to where it was like, stop, just go. And what's the worst case scenario? You get a job and it doesn't work out at a studio, at a gym. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, who cares? So I really was able to mentally like jump that hurdle. And once I did, I was like, oh, okay, that's really cool. Funny thing was, I had an interview at Lifetime, and that's like one of the biggest, like most prominent gyms where they pay amazing. And I was like, all right, it's basically how they do for personal trainers. It's almost like a cattle call where they
Mhm.
call you into a room. It's like, you're going to give your best 3 minutes and you keep it moving. And it was like probably 100 people in there. So finally, when I get called up, I'm there. I put my music on. I announce myself. I tell them that I'm from Rockaway Beach. My music cuts. I'm the only one whose music cut. And in my head, I'm like, but I just kept it moving. I acted like it didn't even happen. They're like, okay, great, whatever. At the end, this girl comes up to me and she was like, you are awesome. You are so much fun. My name is Taina. My best friend owns a gym in Rockaway. I was like, really? She was like, yeah, boutique studio, this, that, and the other thing. She was the one who introduced me to Mo, who owns Good Form, who opened up a plethora of opportunities and experiences for me. And the funny thing is, the day before that cattle call to Lifetime, I was in such a bitchy mood, pardon my language. And I was like, I don't want to do this shit. My trainer mentor friend, Steve, at the time, he called me and he was like, "Are we training tomorrow? What are we doing?" I'm like, "No, I have this thing at Lifetime, but you know what? Screw it. I'm not going to go. Fuck this. Like, I'm so over this. Yeah, I'll train tomorrow." And he was like, he literally goes, and he never cursed me. He goes, "Stop being a bitch. Go to that interview." And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gone to that interview and then all these other things wouldn't have happened. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I always look at things like, not to sound corny, when people like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, you
And it
know?
was meant to be. It was meant
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? I like what you said because everything you've said now during this time was, it's me. It's me. I'm in my own head. So
Yeah.
I think that was the big challenge, right? Or the challenges that you face because a lot of us go through that. A lot of people go through like, oh, we overthink things. We're sometimes we think most of us think we're not good enough, but you got to try it, right? Like what do they always say, right? You want to win the lottery, you got to buy the ticket, right? If you want to
Yeah.
go, so I mean, I love that you have even had a friend going to, hey, you got to do this. Don't be a bitch and don't be scared and do it. And you did it. And look at it now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh, and here's the thing now, sharing what you said, right? And the challenges, self challenges, as far as that experience, right? And now reflecting back on it, right? Do you think that's made you more of a resilient person as far as leading people, teaching people, not just, say what you're doing in high school with students, but also what you're doing now with your clients? Was it something that you're saying, hey, you know what? I knew I had this, or was it something that just reaffirmed what you knew you had already?
Yeah. You know what I mean? I definitely do. And I think too, when my years of teaching high school and just the way it's like very interpersonal, that job too, you're also performing. There's also days with teaching, you feel like absolute shit, but I have to show up to a class of 35 teenagers and put it on and be like, "All right, guys, we got a Regents in June. I'm going to get you through it." And it's the same thing with my clients. There's days where it's like, I'm going through it. I'm not feeling great. I'm tired. And it's like I have to do this one-on-one check-in, or, I have this opportunity to, to host this class or do a pop-up. And it's like, I don't want to do this. But then like, it goes back to that mental thing. Like literally I tell myself, stop being a bitch. You are so like, you know what I mean? Like you have so many great things and so many opportunities. Like show up, pull your bootstraps up and go. And that's just like, it's crazy because a few years ago, and like I always projected like I was confident, but always on like the inside, I would always question myself, right? Like, am I good enough? Like, am I smart enough? Ooh, can I do this? And now it's like, I really threw out that narrative. It's like, yeah, I'm smart enough. I'm good enough. I know what I'm doing. Just go and do it. Done.
Right. And you know what? You absolutely are doing it. You're crushing it. And I love that because it's inspiring to others who are going through a journey and it leads into like, hey, they may not have the confidence, right? We've all gone through that at some point.
Yeah.
And look what you're just sharing now. Think about this one, right? You know,
Yeah.
you had the support of your friend, right? What
Yeah.
other support would you say that you had besides that, or any that you had to reach out to? 'Cause, starting and building is always the hardest part because there's a big unknown, right? So
Yeah.
what did you do as far as support system? And then I'm not talking about just finance or anything. I'm talking about,
Yeah.
hey, you're an unknown. You had to build a network of people. You already had a network, but obviously there's challenges in the beginning, right? None of this is easy. People thinks it's easy because
No.
they see the sexy stuff that, oh, hey, this is a sexy industry, meaning, look at the success. There's work behind it. There's the stuff that's unspoken, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
what would you say, drove you to? Like, was it just something like, hey, it was immediate right away because it does happen? Or did you count on others to keep you, hey, motivated, inspired, like you said with your friend?
So it's controversial, right? Because it's like the reality is, once again, fitness is a very competitive industry, right? And I've talked to people who have been in it for decades, right? It's hard. You gotta, you gotta struggle. You're not gonna make any money, this, that, and the other thing. And honestly, like hearing that, I'm just like, fuck that. No, like, okay, you might have been doing this for 30 years, but if it's like, if you're plateauing and you're doing the same thing for 30 years, it's like, what are you not doing? Right. So for me, it's like, I really leaned into other people who were successful. It's like, one of my friends, another mentor, she helped transform my body, Lorena Ragusa, Body by Loli. She's amazing. And she was the person who got me into online sales, right? And she would tell me, like, no, you can do this. Like, you can totally do this. You know what I mean? Like, you got this. Even for me, it's like pulling away from a lot of negativity. And I think that it's hard too, where, when you have friends, family, you know what I mean? People who you're so close with. And when they see you changing and evolving and then they're the same, I think sometimes it's a hard pill for them to swallow where maybe you don't have the time or the accessibility that you used to. And it's not cutting people off. It's just kind of like reevaluating that relationship, and then maybe realizing like, oh, wait, that relationship when I was in a bad place, I'm not in that bad place anymore. And it's like maybe that wasn't the healthiest, right?
Right.
So I think it's to like reevaluating relationships, right? And being like, what is fueling me in a positive way? And sticking with that. And then the people who are dragging you down, it's not saying cut them off. It's not saying F you. It's just kind of like, okay, how can we reestablish this relationship to lean more towards healthy?
Right.
And if it can't, then healthily distancing yourself. Because then it's going to bring you down. When you have a business, you don't have the time and energy. Like it's like when you want to succeed, you dump so much into it. So the little energy that you do have, you want it to be positive, not to be exhausting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely spot on, and thank you for that. And my experience and others that I've advised, a lot of folks have said the same thing you've said, right? Like, hey, there's people, family, friends, people that former coworkers, whatever the case is, you start
Yeah.
doing these things and you start becoming successful. You start doing things differently than you were before when you said you were in a not so good place, right? But then people see you change with you. I'm like, nothing's wrong. And people have a hard time seeing that beyond what they're used to seeing. And for you and for the others listening now, when you're making these changes, you're making this progress, these huge gains in life, in health and whatnot, you don't change it for anybody. Yes, you still care about people, but you're, like you said, that little energy left at the end of the day after you're dedicating to the business, your life that you're now living in addition to the rest of it, that's for you, right? And you don't want to have to exit people. People should just support. Not saying they don't support, you, but I love what you said. It's different, and you're learning to reestablish a relationship in a different way now, in a positive way,
Yeah.
especially for you. So that I love that. That's something I think that's really neat. A lot of people don't understand that part, and they continue to say, "Hey, I want to go back and I did this thing, but I'm going to go back and act or be as available to others." It's not saying cut people off, like you said. It's more of know now what your time is valuable. You're going to have to balance it, right? So
Yeah.
that's great. Quick question.
Yeah.
This leads into maybe beyond before you started this, right? What would you say, or, obviously you bet on yourself, right? So which paid off. Who was the first person to bet on you, or how, what I mean? Like how did, what would you say? Was there things that gave you belief in the beginning, whether it was this or even beyond before this? And then how would
Yeah.
you say you pay it forward now to other people, whether it be, other entrepreneurs or women in the field, right? Because of what
Yeah.
people have gambled on you or to spend time with you to coach you up.
Yeah. I think for me, it was like really me gambling on myself, right? Of course, you have the support of friends, family, coworkers, all that, but it was like really me getting into that mental space, being like, I can do this.
Yeah.
And one person who I'm like obsessed with, and her podcast really motivated me and put me in that mind space, was Layla Hormozy.
Hmm.
That's one person who I'm forever grateful for because everyone knows Alex Hormozy, right? Like, he's the guy, and his wife is a genius. And even in his podcast, he shouts her out all the time. He's like, no, Layla is like the real brains,
Yeah.
but she doesn't have as much quote unquote clout as him. And I think that goes back into your earlier question where it's like, how do you deal with misogyny? Right. And I didn't really answer that, but I do think a lot of times, even in the fitness field, men always come off more credible, right? The fitness realm up until recently was always so male dominated, right? It's like, building on muscle, that's men, right? Creatine, protein, that's like a guy thing, right? So even as a coach, one of the biggest barriers I have is getting women to lift weights because they don't want to come off bulky. And it's like, no, it's like you're building muscle. Muscle is healthy. This is what's going to sustain you and keep longevity, right? But sorry, circling back, Layla Hormozy. She really just listening to her podcast on business and motivation and resilience. And she leads a lot without saying it, like into stoicism. That's what really, really motivated me
Yeah, they're
for
great.
sure.
And by the way, they are great. Shout out to them. I mean, they've done some great things and a lot very well known as you've alluded to. And I like you said, it's the resiliency, right? And segueing to this. And this is something that's always tough. It's hard. People have heard and are listening to your story, but what are the words of wisdom that you have for just in general for entrepreneurs, whether it be again, doesn't matter the sex or whatnot, but again, you went through your journey of how you started, how you developed into who you are, who you've listened to, the people that pushed you, the relationships that are evolving, right? That you now have with family, whoever else. What is your advice to folks that are trying to start a journey, regardless whether it's in fitness, online, or anything? Like what's your advice to folks who are contemplating? I don't know if I want to do this because that stuck with me. You said like, I don't know, maybe I want to do this. What is your suggestion to them? And advice from your experience.
I would just say, and part of my language, fuck the noise, fuck the static, bet on yourself and just go.
Love it. I love it.
That's it.
And that's it. Simply said, stop overthinking, right? That's the biggest things. Don't,
Yeah.
a lot of people overthink the things. And I think that that's a key thing. And, for you, from me to you and for everyone, I'm like, congratulations. Like really, I say this, I don't say this lightly, but to be able to inspire people like you have is in itself a success, right? You're
Yeah.
changing lives. You're changing not just the physical, the mind, right? You're getting people healthier. You obviously you're benefiting it too. Like, hey, you're feeling good about helping folks and I
Yeah.
love what you're doing. I mean, you're a teacher too. I mean, gosh, look at all the great things you're doing and the lives you're impacting that is unspoken. So well done. Seriously, well done.
Thank you.
I love that. But yeah, no, and for the folks listening, here, yeah, this is the things that we want to do. We want to connect people and stars like Carly, who's done some great work, some of the stuff that we want to recognize. And folks, please ask questions. We'll get some questions at Carly if you have any. Follow us, subscribe, and again, we're here for you guys. And anything you have. Carly, we're going to have you back on again about other topics. Hey, just much love for everything and everyone. And I just want to say thank you, Carly.
Thank you, Erwin. This was awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're going to do more of this. So definitely love having you on.
Love it.